Buenos días y bienvenidos. Es para mí un placer, al ser la primera sesión de la mañana, darles la bienvenida en nombre de los organizadores de este Congreso a la Universidad Pablo de Olavide. Como saben, el Congreso está organizado por la Universidad Pablo de Olavide y la Universidad de Sevilla, en colaboración, como ayer se explicaba en la sesión inaugural. Les damos pues la bienvenida a quienes vienen por vez primera y estamos encantados, bueno, pues de que conozcan la universidad, que como saben es una de las dos universidades públicas de esta ciudad, de Sevilla. Quería dar las gracias también, perdón, me presento, mi nombre es Elena Muñiz, soy profesora de Historia Antigua en esta casa, en la Facultad de Humanidades, y tengo la suerte de presidir esta sesión sobre religión y patrimonio cultural, pues gracias a la invitación de los 4 organizadores, 4 queridos, muy queridos amigos, y 4 excelentes organizadores que han logrado, pues, con esta iniciativa, que se ponga sobre el papel, ¿no?, estas perspectivas desde las humanidades, algo de lo que estaba hablando precisamente con la primera oradora de la mañana, con la profesora Attali, que ahora voy a presentarles. El estudio de Juego de Tronos es realmente el estudio de la historia de la humanidad. Entonces yo, que era ajena a la serie y a todos sus intríngulis y entresijos, hasta que mis amigos me recomendaron fehacientemente que la viese, debo agradecerles a ellos haber terminado por fin la visualización de la serie completa y haber descubierto que, en efecto, Juego de Tronos, como cualquier creación cultural, por supuesto, a lo largo de la historia, nos abre una ventana, en este caso una ventana privilegiada, a la historia de la humanidad en su conjunto. Ayer, durante la conferencia de Carlos Rosado, la conferencia inaugural, una conferencia interesantísima, se ponían de relieve los efectos económicos, los efectos de promoción del territorio de series como Juego de Tronos. Y si tuvieron la suerte de escucharle, fue una charla inmensamente interesante en la que aprendimos mucho. Él terminaba haciendo referencia incluso a la, si no recuerdo mal, voy a ver si lo digo bien, a la creación realmente de una relación emocional más intensa, creo que decía él, con los lugares que se muestran en Juego de Tronos, con lo cual, bueno, pues dejaba a un lado los efectos puramente externos, por así decir, de la serie, de grandes producciones culturales como esta, y se adentraba en el terreno que este Congreso pone de relieve con más claridad, que es el efecto del producto cultural en las vidas de quienes lo disfrutan, de quienes lo leen, de quienes lo visualizan, de quienes se acercan luego a los lugares que han intervenido en la creación de un universo imaginario compartido. En el fondo se trata de esto, se trata de una serie de referencias culturales que al final todos acabamos compartiendo y lo más interesante y lo que vamos a ver durante el día de hoy y durante los días que quedan de Congreso es que ese universo compartido se apoya a su vez en una serie de referencias culturales compartidas, se apoya en dinámicas históricas comunes que todos conocemos y que son sus ecos, son los que adivinamos en Juego de Tronos. De manera que, bueno, pues es una suerte poder dedicar estos días al análisis de este producto cultural extraordinario, que además tiene una dimensión realmente fuera de toda medida por la cantidad de millones de personas que ahora mismo comparten ese universo cultural, realmente, ¿no?, ese imaginario colectivo. De todas estas cosas sabe mucho la primera oradora de esta mañana, la profesora Maureen Attali, de la Universidad de Rennes, doctora en Historia de las Religiones y en Antropología Religiosa, y dedicada, como comentábamos y como se ve en su currículum, a un estudio en un principio ajeno a Juego de Tronos, al estudio del ritual judío en época helenística. El análisis antropológico y religioso que ella dedica a su principal línea de investigación, que es el rito judío antes del Imperio Romano, la dota de una serie de herramientas que ella aplica al análisis de Juego de Tronos y que le han llevado a escribir ya una serie de obras al respecto, con lo cual su comunicación, su ponencia de hoy, que lleva el título de, y lo traduzco porque lo tienen en el programa en inglés, algo así como aspectos performativos del ritual y estándar moral, el giro del discurso clásico sobre religiones, y me falta una palabra al final, lo lamento. ¿Perdón? Exactamente.
Yeah.
Y superstición en Canción de Hielo y Fuego y Juego de Tronos, pues nos va a permitir apreciar esta perspectiva que ella aplica de manera sobresaliente. De manera que con ella les dejo.
Gracias. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer for inviting me. I was extremely surprised and honored by the invitation. And this is the first time that I have had 1 hour to talk, and I'm not sure I'm up to the task, so please bear with me. Unfortunately, I could not attend the conference yesterday because of academia, and I do not know what is the general policy regarding quoting the TV show and the books. So this is the keys that I'm going to use, which are, I think, those that everyone uses. And I will make some reference to the books. I'm not sure if many of you are planning to do it, but I'll refer to it at some point. Okay, so religion, magic, and superstition in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. How to differentiate. And to introduce the topic, I thought I would quote this sentence, which was told by Varys to Tyrion in the 3rd season of the show. Was it a god, a demon, a sorcerer's trick? I do not know, but the sorcerer called and a voice answered. So, when a supernatural phenomenon occurs in Game of Thrones, not every character is certain of the nature of the phenomenon, even if it is a supernatural phenomenon. So, to begin with, I'll use an anthropological and operative definition of magic. I'll say, to begin with, that magic is a supernatural phenomenon that cannot be accounted for either by the laws of nature nor by divine agency within an established and conventional religion. And the problem will be here. What is an established and conventional religion? The definition that I am using is extra-diegetic because in the books and in the TV shows, not all the characters always consider the same phenomenon to be magical. So I cannot use an internal definition of magic. If scientific discoveries are made or if faith evolves, the boundaries of magic shift. If religion shifts, the boundaries of magic shift. And since there are several religions in Game of Thrones, the definition of magic varies. Also, I did not say, but there will be a lot of spoilers in my presentation up until season 8, episode 3. So I hope you are up to the show. And if not, I'm really sorry. So as of last Sunday, the supernatural elements in Game of Thrones have not yet been rationalized, but there is only 1 episode to go. So unless the whole episode is 2 hours long and devoted to this, they will not be rationalized, at least not in the TV show. So since we saw what we generally call magic happen in the show, we know that there is either divine agency at work in the world of Game of Thrones or actual magic. But we do not know the difference, really, between the two. A same phenomenon, a same act, can be called magic by a character or faith by another, and the definition is unclear. There is, in Game of Thrones, and I think that's a very important thing, there is no true faith, because there are some magical phenomena that are attributed, let's say, to the children of the forest, and other magical phenomena attributed to the red priests and priestesses. They do not have the same religion, they do not have the same god, but they can both make magic happen. So both of them are valid in the world of Game of Thrones, at least on an operative level. It works. So what I propose to do is to analyze the contrast the contrasting and evolving relationships between the concepts of magic, religion, and superstition in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, because I think they reflect the concepts, beliefs, and rituals documented in the ancient world, mainly through Greek and Roman sources, and at the end, also some anthropological, sociological, and historiographical scholarly discourses on those Greek and Roman concepts. I will argue that these comparisons may provide insight into the narrative and world building of Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, and maybe some clues to the end of the shows, even though it has leaked, so everyone knows. So my presentation will be in two main parts. The first part will be more descriptive. What is magic in the show, and who are the practitioners of magic? And the second will be more reflexive. Is magic religion, or is magic the opposite of religion in the show? Strap yourselves in, it's going to be intense. So this is the outline of the first part, and we will successively see the identity of sorcerers, magicians, and witches, because all those words are used in the material. The magical means, mainly blood, fire, spells, potions, and we'll see. The forms of magic, illusions, race, and soul projection. And to finish the first part, the goals of magic. What is magic used to do? Predicting the future, altering the meteorological conditions, killing enemies, and raising the dead. So what is magic in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire? Who are the practitioners of magic? Regarding their identity, it's rather complex. The obvious beginning would be to look at the characters who are called Maegi in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. In the TV shows, there are two. Mirri Maz-Dur, which is the Maegi who rendered Khal Drogo catatonic and killed Daenerys' child in the womb in the end of the first season. She is on the bottom. And Maggie, who is a Maegi who lived in Lannisport and made prophecies to Cersei. The prophecy that she will not marry Rhaegar Targaryen, that she will be a queen until a younger queen surpasses her, and in the books, but not in the TV show, that she will be strangled by her younger brother, which is a big bone of contention right now in the fan community. So what are those Maegi? In the book, they are specifically defined as women from the eastern continent of Essos who practice blood magic, and their name is supposed to mean wise in High Valyrian. So, as most of you know, Maegi is a Persian word. Well, it was a Persian word. It was passed on to the Greek, magos plural magoi, and in 5th century BCE Greek literature, it meant the religious experts of the Medes and the Mazdean priest of the Achaemenid Empire. And a lot of famous Greek writers wrote about them, beginning with Herodotus, not beginning, but most famously Herodotus. He told us that the Magoi interpreted dreams, that they offered sacrifice, that they interpreted omens, and they are also compared to wizards casting spells. And a little bit later, Xenophon is also telling us more or less the same, and they say that they are expert on the divine. And that is all. Just for those of you who had never seen them, it's an Achaemenid description, a representation of a magos. So that is for the Maegi. But they are not the only practitioners of magic in Game of Thrones. If we try just to begin to put up a list, we'll see that it's a little bit complicated. The first that come to mind are the red priests and priestesses, so Melisandre, Toros, Kinvara, and their pupils, such as Beric Dondarrion. Then we have the sorcerer, who mutilated Varys in Myr. We have the Magi, we have Quace, the shadowbinder of Ashai. We have the shapeshifters and the wargs, Orell, Bran, Stark, etc., the faceless men. Only in the books there are wood witches and wizards. I will also include here Dornish people. I will tell you why a little bit further on. And there are also people that we don't know if they are recipient of magic or practitioner of magic. Daenerys maybe would not be anyone's first choice to identify a magician in the TV show, but she is. Because she has, in some instances, she has fire immunity. And that does apply to our anthropological definition of magic. Sandor Clegane, last season, saw visions, prophetic visions in the fire. So he also practices magic to a certain extent. In the books, Jaime Lannister has prophetic dreams, also a big bone of contention for the fans, because he did not have them and they are a plot point in the books. You also have the children of the forest, who are non-humans, and the White Walker, who are also non-humans. If we take only those of them who are humans, and those whose learning process is not a part of the plot, who were first introduced as magician or witch or sorcerer, we can remark that most of them are foreign. They are not originally from Westeros, those who are humans. And also, most of those who have a very important role in the plot to begin with are women. And that's quite interesting, but I will not spend too much time on it because I think there will be a specific presentation on it. One of the stereotypes of witch in ancient Greece is Medea, the foreign witch, because she was Colchian, which is nowadays Georgia, and she is the one of the prototype of the witch in ancient sources. And according to folk etymology, she would have given her name to the Medes, the one who have the Magoi. So we see the association between foreignness, femininity, we say in English, and magic. That's not the only association, but it is a rather prominent one, I think. So just to illustrate it, I put up two of the main witches in the show, Melisandre, Quaithe, and a depiction of Medea on her, with her serpents, but this will be studied by someone else. But remark that Medea is in Persian garb, and that her garb emphasizes her foreignness, exactly as is the case for Melisandre and Quaithe. Also, I have not yet told you why I think they can be considered as magicians. I will tell you later. But the foreignness of the Dornishmen is also emphasized by their garb. Their garb is yellow, patterned, and they have headdress. A lot of historical parallels can be drawn to explain these different characteristics, and many have been put forth already. But I think there is a case for the Greek representation of the Persian Achaemenid soldier, which were characterized by yellow, headdress, and patterned garb. So this also reinforces the idea that magic is foreign. Magical means blood, fire, spells, potions, and something else. So I think pretty much everyone who has seen maybe just one episode of the show knows about blood's magic, because it's often depicted. Blood, in a very general sense, can include body parts. Two main scenes in the shows are the fact that Melisandre leeches Gendry to use his blood, and the burning at the stake of Shireen Baratheon, and there are others in the book. Sometimes the use of people's blood results in their deaths. There are also other types of blood's magic in order to activate their flaming swords by Thoros and Beric. We know that Varys' genitals were cast into a brazier. We don't know why, but they were. Mirri Maz Dur, the Maegi, used blood magic to render Khal Drogo catatonic and to kill Daenerys' stillborn child. And Maggie to give prophecy to Cersei, drunk her blood. Blood's magic was something which is very often mentioned in Roman sources, especially regarding witches, which were accused of killing boys to perform spells. And we see the obvious parallel with Melisandre. The poet Horace gave a pretty famous depiction of witches killing boys by having them die of hunger in order to use their body parts in spells. And we also have a non-literary but epigraphic source, an epitaph, a funerary inscription, of a boy, a slave boy, who was killed supposedly by witches. And Roman law punished by death those who kill others in order to use their body parts or their blood in spells. So there is a pretty clear parallel between Melisandre's means of magic and what was considered magic in late Republican and Imperial Rome. There is also fire magic. This is also very prominent in the book. Fire gave birth to dragon. Daenerys Targaryen has fire immunities. Not all the Targaryen has it. That's a plot point. Some think they have it, but they don't. Fires kill the White Walkers. And the Red Priest and Priestesses and some others have vision looking into the fire. I think if you were to ask someone where fire divination or pyromancy originates from, they will tell you that it originates from Persia. But the thing is, we do not know, because we do not know anything about ancient Mazdaism from Persian sources. All the sources have disappeared. So this is a cliché that the Magoi practiced pyromancy, but we are not extremely, there is no ancient sources to attest to it. However, fire divination, pyromancy, is often mentioned in Greek and Roman sources, and it is attributed to Prometheus, who gave fire to men. And it is considered as one of the main forms of divination in the Roman world. This is pretty standard, but I also wanted to mention the fact that we do have ancient spells. We do have quite a lot of them. We discovered papyri, which are just lists of spells with the actual formula of the spell and the indication in order to make a spell. So I put up this one, which is very strongly connected to light and fire. You see the invocation, and the name of the divine or the supernatural being that is invocated: light maker, fire breather, fire filler, light breather, fire delighter, beautiful light, fire body, light giver, fire sower, fire driver, light forcer, fire wielder, light mover, etc., etc. So drawing on the power of supernatural beings associated to fire is something very common in antiquity, and has also a strong parallel with the magic of the red priests and priestesses. There are also spells. A number of Maegi are famous for selling love potions and love spells, and some spells are relevant to the plot, the main plot in Game of Thrones. The spells cast by Mirri Maz Dur and by Melisandre. If you have seen the last season, the third episode, you will maybe remember that Melisandre performed 2 spells, and I think for the first time, the only thing she did was speak. There was nothing else. The spell only worked because she spoke. She did not use pre-existing fire, and she did not use magic. You will remember that previously, in order to inflame swords, Beric and Toros had to cut their hand. But to inflame the swords of the Dothraki, Melisandre did not do that. She only spoke. But what is a spell? Traditionally, in ancient sources, a spell are words and formulas in an unknown or unintelligible language. In the TV show, it is interesting that most spells are cast using a language which is High Valyrian. When Melisandre speaks in High Valyrian in the show, when she has a conversation with someone else, when she speaks to Toros, when she speaks to Daenerys in High Valyrian, the conversation is translated in subtitles. But when she casts spells, it is not translated, at least not where I see the show, so I hope it's the same for you. But I thought it was very interesting because it does mean that in the mind, I don't know if it's the mind of George Martin because it does not appear this way in the book, or the showrunners, there is a difference between spell and normal speech, even if the language is supposedly a language that people know and speak. When it is a spell, it is not translated. So there is an idea of hermeticism, if you will. This is also a very common thing in the spells that we have from antiquity. I could have taken any spells. In the middle of any spells, or all the spells, it's a string of words. I have put up, and by tradition, we write it in capital letters, so you can see it. So you see it here in the middle. You just have a string of letters. And the meaning is not supposed to be no. It is very difficult to know how it was pronounced. We traditionally pronounce it like it was Greek, but I will not try it. It's too difficult. But you can see the idea that a spell is unintelligible. And it is also worth noting that when people cast spell in the TV show, Melisandre and Toros, when it does not work, after their first word, they repeat the same word. We do not know what they say because it's not translated, but if you listen, you can hear that they repeat it, they repeat it, they repeat. When Melisandre, last week, 10 days ago, tried to light up the wood, she didn't manage the first time, so she repeated it until it worked. It's the idea that a language is performative. The more you try it, the more chances you have at it working. So why did I say that the Dornishman could be considered as a magician? I do not think that it does appear in the show, but it does appear in the book. You will all remember the fight between Oberyn Martell and the Mountain, I think. And both died. But Gregor Clegane died because of the wound, but he also died because Oberyn's weapons were poisoned. In itself, poison is not magic. Poison is herblore. It is botanics. And in the TV show, as I remember it, that's all there is to it. However, in the books, Qyburn tells Cersei that it was not all there was to it, that in order to make the poison worse and to worsen the death, the poison was activated by a spell. So this is why I included the Dornishman inside my initial presentation of practitioner of magic, because I wanted to also. Unexplained means. This is mostly regarding the resurrections in the books, in the shows also. We have a number of resurrections. 6 resurrections of Beric Dondarrion by Toros of Myr. Only 1 or 2 are depicted in the TV, maybe 2 in the TV show, but he was resurrected 6 times. There is also the famous resurrection of Jon Snow by Melisandre, and another bone of contention that did not make it to the TV show, the resurrection of Catelyn Stark by Beric. And what's very interesting in this, it's not the resurrection in itself that we will focus on later, it's the fact that all those who performed it, Toros, Mélisandre, and Béric, when asked if they brought someone back from the dead, they say they did not know. And I quoted here a quote from the book, from Toros to Arya. He's speaking about Beric. When his poor torn chest stopped moving, I gave him the good God's own kiss to send him on his way. I filled my mouth with fire and breathed the flames inside him, down his throat to lungs and heart and soul. The last kiss, it is called. And many times I saw old priests bestow it on the Lord's servants as they died. This is not supposed to resurrect, if it wasn't clear for you. It is a funerary rite of the acolytes of Ralor. It's not a resurrection rite in itself. I had given it a time or two myself, as all priests must. They do not resurrect everyone. But never before I felt a dead man shudder as the fire filled him, nor seen his eyes come open. It was not me who raised him, my lady. Later on in the show, when Davos asked Mélisandre to try to resurrect John, when she says some have this power, Davos asks her, oh, and she says, I do not know. Even those who can perform resurrection do not know how they do it. In Greek, that is called charisma. It is a gift bestowed by a god to his servants, in which the servant is only the vessel of the god. He does not actually perform anything. He is only the vessel for the power of the god. I have put up one example, which is a Christian example from the Apocryphal Acts of Peter. It's a resurrection story, a very commonplace one. When Peter is confronted with a widow's son who died, he lifts up his gaze to heaven, he stretches his hand, he prays, he asks for the son to be raised up, and the dead man rose up. So there is this idea that in some cases, and in the most supernatural, if you wish, of cases, the practitioners of magic do not know how they did it, because they are only vessels for another power. The forms of magic: creating illusions, conjuring rays, projecting souls into other bodies. A very famous and striking scene in the show was when we discovered that Mélisandre disguised, there is a mistake, sorry, grammar mistake, sorry, a real appearance with a magic choker. It is likely that we will never know why or we won't know. But she had the ability, or she owned something that had the ability to make her appear younger. Seriously younger. So I could not find a very strict parallel for this in ancient sources, but since we spoke about media, it is worth noting that one of media's main magical acts is the ability to rejuvenate. It is not an illusion in media's case, she does rejuvenate people. It is also a blood ritual involving the death of many animals, but it is not an illusion. There are illusions, there are people who can cast illusion. The spell that I mentioned before, this one is an invisibility spell, so it is a spell devised up to create an illusion, but not the illusion of use. So this was not a very strong parallel, except if we focus on the figure of Medea. There are the shadow binders, two in the TV show, Mélisandre and Quace of Achai, which mean that they can create shadows, shadowy assistants, and make them carry out the task. The scene is also very famous because in the show, it's not that clear in the books, it's a little bit clear. Mélisandre does actually give birth to it in a scene that is completely reminiscent of normal birth. I think the parallel for this is medieval, so I will not comment on it very much. However, the appearance of the shadow is quite interesting. It's dark and smoky, which is the generic appearance of ghost in antiquity. A ghost is dark and smoky. I have put up several examples. One in Lucien of Samosat, which tells us that a ghost was pitch black. And also, manufacturing ghostly assistants, which are called paredros, is very common. And asking them to carry out a task for them is also very common. This is about a third of all the spells that we have. It is creating a ghostly assistant. And what's more relevant to our interest, sometimes those ghostly assistants are used to kill people, which is the same thing as in the show. Mélisandre only in the show use shadows to kill people. Quace does it for other purposes, to warn Daenerys, but Mélisandre only does it to kill people. So I put a very famous text from Metamorphoses, the Golden Ass of Apuleius, when a wife wants revenge on her husband, so she asks a witch to conjure a ghost, and the ghost kill the husband. So this is something which is also a very common trend in ancient sources regarding magic. Skin changer and works. So the main thing here is the show is the fact that Bran has the ability to enter the body of other living beings, and he also has the specific ability to enter the mind of human beings. He is in the show the only one able to do that, because the other skin changers can only inhabit the mind of animals. So in the book it's mostly Orell the Wildling and Bran, and in the show, and in the books you have several shapeshifter and wargs. It may be that all the Stark children are able to warg into their direwolf, but it's not explicit in the book. It is alluded to, but it's not explicit. And in the book, there are also characters that are rumored to be shapeshifters. The woman of House Mormont, you will remember the children, Lyanna Mormont, who died 2 episodes ago, which was pretty fierce and a fan favorite. She is from this house. And in the book, it is said that they can transform themselves into bears. So this is also not something that is that common in antiquity, but something that does exist and is, I think, pretty similar to what Bran can do, to what the three-eyed raven can do, is soul projecting. It's not shape-shifting, as in the show. Bran is not shape-shifting, he is soul projecting. He sends his soul into another body. There are few people in the ancient world who were said to have this ability. I have put up an example from Maximus of Tyre in the 2nd century CE. A Proconnesian, it's Aristeas of Proconnesus. His soul, however, leaving the body, wandered in the ether like a bird, and it could then re-enter its body. So this is a pretty, I think, strong parallel to what the three-eyed raven and Bran can do. There is also lycanthropy, but lycanthropy is more common, and it's not that clear in the TV show and in the books if some people have the actual ability to shapeshift into animals. The goals of magic. What is the point of magic? What people are trying to do in Game of Thrones with magic. Mainly, I think, they try to predict the future, to alter meteorological conditions, to kill enemies, and to raise the dead. Prophecies. There are a lot of prophecies in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. I woke up at night because I forgot some. I don't think the list is complete because there are really too many to keep track of. The main corpus of prophecy, which was supposed to be relevant to the plot but apparently isn't, is the fact that there should be a chosen one which, depending on the cultural context, is called the stallion that mounts the world, the prince that was promised, or other are I. The relevance of these prophecies is not certain because as of today, there is no such character. And if there was, we would not know if it was the outcome of the prophecy or just chance. We will never know. But other prophecies have actually come to pass in the TV show and in the book. The prophecy of Maggie to Cersei, which I already mentioned. Melisandre foretold Arya that she will kill people with green, brown, and blue-eyed. She did it, and she tells Melisandre in episode 3 of season 8 that she did. And she does kill the person with blue-eyed in the same episode. All the visions that the red priest and priestesses see in the fire came to pass, but they are subject to interpretations. We will go back on that later. The vision of thunder into the fire came to pass. In the book, Jaime Lannister's prophetic dream has come to pass. Quay's prophecies regarding Daenerys have also come to pass. Same for the green sight of George and Reed. And also there is the three-eyed raven, which does not really prophesize. He is ubiquitous, which is not the same. Which means he knows whatever happened in the past, and while it is not extremely clear, probably whatever happens at the time. But it is not clear if he sees the future. Apparently he does not in the TV show. In the books, it's not so clear. So at least 2/3, I think, if I did not forget any, of the whole body of prophecies have come to pass in the book and in the TV show, which is a very big problem, even as a viewer and as a reader, because there is no way to differentiate the prophecy that have a chance of happening from those who have not. We do not know what is the criteria. Or why would a prophecy work? We do not know. And this is a little bit of a problem because it can pass as bad writing. Because if you arbitrarily decide that a prophecy will be fulfilled but not another one, and you did not explain why one will and the other will not, it's Deus ex machina. You can do whatever you want. You are not constrained by the narrative. But that's not my place to talk about that. So the interesting thing regarding prophecies in Game of Thrones, first is that they are subject to interpretation. And you probably know that it is one of the main things of oracles in antiquity, is that they are always right because we never know what they mean. So they are always right. If we take the Delphi oracle of Apollo, I don't know how to say it in English, the Pythia? The Pythia does not actually speak in Greek. She screams. And there are experts who interpret what she says in Greek. But even the Greek words, they never have a clear and defined meaning. A very famous example of this is the oracle which was given to Croesus, the king of Lydia, in 6th century BCE. He went to the oracle, and the oracle told him, if you go to war, you will destroy a great empire. At the time, Croesus was opposed to the Persian Achaemenid Empire of Cyrus the Great. So he went to war with Cyrus because of the oracle. He lost the war, he was captured, and died 1 year later. But before he died, he sent an embassy to the Delphi oracle and asked, but you told me that I will destroy a great empire. And the oracle told him, you did not catch my meaning. I was saying that you will destroy your own great empire, that is the kingdom of Lydia. And it is the same thing for Melisandre in the book. She saw a victory in the flames. She thought that it meant that Stannis was Azor Ahai and that he would prevail, but he did not. She saw the victory and the victory happens, but it was not the victory that she wanted and that she thought would happen. So this is a narrative parallel. And there is also, what I mentioned before, what did the Greek thought about prophecies? It's complicated, but the thing is, they could not dismiss it because many came to pass. And this is the stand of Herodotus. You may know that Herodotus is known for being critical. He strove to find a rational explanation for phenomenon. But he also writes down that you cannot dismiss prophecies because many have come to pass. So prophecies are something that really exists. And this is the same thing for us and for the character in the show. There are prophecies that will work, there are prophecies that will not, but we don't know which one. We can only guess and be disappointed when the one we wanted to happen don't. Altering meteorological conditions in order to win a battle of a war. This is what Mélisandre does. She burns Shirin at the stake to melt the snow because Stannis' army was suffering from cold and hunger. And this is also the context of a very famous magical act or miracle, however you want to call it, under the reign of Marcus Aurelius in the Roman Empire. The Romans were losing against the Quadi. And according to the narrative of Cassius Dio, there was an Egyptian magician with Marcus Aurelius, and he managed to alter the meteorological condition, and the Roman could win. So this is also a very common pattern to alter the weather in order to win a battle. There is also the ultimate goal, which is killing a pretender to the throne. So both Mirri Maz and Mélisandre did that several times in the TV show. Mirri Maz killed Daenerys' unborn child in her womb because he was to be the stallion that mounts the world. And Mélisandre killed Renly, but you may remember that she also devised up a ritual in order to kill Robb Stark, Balon Greyjoy, and Joffrey Baratheon. And there is a very clear parallel for that in antiquity, which is the death of Germanicus in 19 CE, because Germanicus was ill, and his illness was attributed to a witch named Martina, which was supposedly contracted by one of Germanicus' enemy, which is Piso. So the idea that witches will help you kill a pretender to the throne is also an ancient one. And then there is the raising of the dead. I have talked about it at length, so I will not spend a lot of time on it. I just wanted to show that this idea is not just Christian. It also appears in Greek and Roman sources that some people have the capacity to raise the dead. The Magoi, the Persian Magoi, but also people who are charismatic. They have the gift from the god, the charisma. So the most famous one is Apollonius of Tyana in the 1st century CE, who was able to raise the dead. So this was the descriptive part. It was not exhaustive, it was not the point, because some of the magical acts do not have parallel that I know of in the ancient sources. So I just wanted to draw parallels with the sources that I know, hopefully. But now, what can we do with that? And does it help to identify magic and to distinguish it or not from religion in the book? And to illustrate this difficulty, I put up a quote from season 7. Gendry is mad because the Brotherhood Without Banners sold him to Mélisandre. And when he sees them again, he tells them, "You sold me to a witch." And Thoros, who is a priest, a red priest, answer, "A priestess. I'll admit that it's a subtle distinction." So it is quite striking that even those who are priests and priestesses of the red god do not seem to take umbrage. Does it work? Do not seem mad at being called magician. When someone tells Mélisandre that she does magic, she never corrects it. She doesn't care, apparently. But for them, magic is a power derived from the god. The red priest of R'hllor, of the Lord of Light, they have the actual ability to make various supernatural events happen, and non-believers, when they see it happen, they cannot contest that it happened. They have to accept it. So I'll put up a little bit of dialogue from season 3, episode 6. The Lord has smiled upon me. This is about the resurrection of Beric Dondarrion. Melisandre tells Thoros, you should not have this power. And Thoros answers in a theological manner, I have no power. I asked the Lord for his favor, and his response, as he will. I knelt aside his cold body and said the old words, and for the first time in my life, the Lord replied. Beric's eyes opened, and then I knew the truth. Our God is the one true God. So I began by saying that there was no true face from the diegetic viewpoint in Game of Thrones, but some characters believe that they are the true face, and this is the case for Thoros and Melisandre. One of the elements that make them a religion and not just magician is that they pray. And this is different from the spells that I mentioned before. The difference is the language. I told before that a spell is something in an intelligible language, and when people cast spell in Game of Thrones, it is in Valyrian and not translated. But sometimes they do not cast spell, they pray. And the difference is marked in the TV show because it is in English, the common tongue in Game of Thrones. Both ways can work. They can make magic happen with spells or with prayer. But some are regular prayer, and I put up an extract from a prayer said by Thoros of Myr. Lord, cast your light upon this man, your servant. Bring him back from the dead and darkness. His flame has been extinguished. This is also a common trope of ancient literature, which is cast spells, but they also pray. They pray in Latin, if they are Roman. Actually, they are Thessalian, but they pray in Latin because it's Lucan talking. And they invoke gods. Here I put in yellow all of the gods, the Humanides, the Avengers, Chaos, Persephone, Hecate, the sisters. They are gods. Gods invoked by magicians, but gods nonetheless. Also, the magicians are very reminiscent of mystes, which I also do not know how to pronounce in English, but that means the initiates of mystery cults. Before, I put up an extract for Medea rejuvenating father-in-law, and in this extract, Medea was described as a bacchante, and she was said to be performing mysteries. This is because magic has a very strong link in ancient sources with mystery cult. Heraclitus, as early as the 6th century BCE, put together the Magoi, the Bacchantes, the Maenads, and the Mysts, because the link between all of them is that they have a direct link to the divine. This is why they are associated. And in ancient sources, mystery cults are said to, even though it's not true, they are said to originate from the East. In the myth, the god Dionysus established his own cult in the East, in India, in most cases, before he reintroduced it in Greece proper. And this is the plot of the famous play by Euripides, Bacchae, the introduction of the mystery cult of Dionysus in Thebes, in Boeotia. This is the same in Game of Thrones, because the cult of R'hllor is originally from Essos, from the East. And very strikingly, the face of R'hllor, when introduced in Westeros, is not very popular to begin with, and it does not have a lot of followers. It was underlined in the 7th season when Melisandre met Daenerys, and Daenerys told her, "You do not have many followers in Westeros," and Melisandre said, "Not yet." They do not have many. One of the reasons is because the cult is violent. It entails violence. And a very famous example of that is the burning at the stake of Mance Rayder, the wildling king. And there is, I think, a parallel with the mystery cults in Rome, because you may know that the cults of the mystery cults of Dionysus, the Bacchanals, were forbidden in Rome at the beginning of the 2nd century BCE on moral and criminal grounds. It's a very complicated and long story, so I did not put it up. But basically, the idea was that the priest and priestesses used the mystery to perform crimes and to perform sexual acts which were deemed unnatural. It was forbidden on criminal grounds. And I think there is a parallel with the cult of R'hllor, which is not very, which was not forbidden, but at the beginning, it may be more prominent in the book, is very badly judged by Westerosi people because it is violent. Among the violence used in this cult, there is blood magic, but it does not always entail death. There is ritual killing, as with the case of Mance Rayder, and there is human sacrifice. Mélisandre considers that the ritual she does using blood, when they result in killing, are sacrifices. They are integrated into a Doudas theology, which is very common ancient theology. The more valuable the gift that you give to the god, the more valuable you will the gift you will receive. So if you sacrifice human life, if you sacrifice a very valuable human life, considered valuable, a princess life, you will get something great in return. This is what Shireen Mothers says while her daughter is burned at the stake at the beginning. She says, it's what the Lord wants. It's a good thing, a great thing, if we make this sacrifice. Many commentators have shown that there are a lot of ancient Greek myths which illustrates the power of human sacrifice, especially the power of princesses being sacrificed sometimes by their fathers. I put up a list. There are a lot of them. I think the most famous are Iphigenia and Polyxena, but there are many, many, many more. It's a very common trope, and we do not even know the differences between some of them sometimes. In Athens, it's always the same thing. So, but there is the idea that it was a very powerful myth, and it was really drawn upon. However, there is a very big difference between what happens to Shireen in Game of Thrones and what happened to all those Greek mythological princesses. Their sacrifice was voluntary. They wanted to be sacrificed. They sacrificed themselves, which is why, according to the mythology, it worked, because it was not certain that it would work if it was not voluntary. And I think this is a key in the world building of Game of Thrones, because the sacrifice of Shireen, as you may remember, did not succeed. Stannis did not prevail in the battle. The snow did melt, but Stannis did not prevail in the battle. He was wounded and killed by Brienne immediately, explicitly as a retribution for the murder of his brother Renly. And as far as I can remember, but I may be wrong, it was the only on-screen failure of Mélisandre. The sacrifice of Shireen was at least partially rejected. Why? Two explanations, and I think the two can go together. First explanation, we saw that prophecies are fickle, and her interpretation of her God's will, the prophecy, was erroneous. Stannis was not Azor Ahai, so it was not the will of her God. But from the audience viewpoint, both the act and the scene were horrendous. It was systematically brought up in media coverage and brought up by the actors themselves. And the actress who plays Mélisandre, Carice Van Houten, told that she did not want to do it, or that she was reluctant to do it, even though she did not do anything in real life. But she thought that it was extremely shocking. And I think whatever we may say about violence and voyeurism in Game of Thrones, I think there is actually a moral limit to the efficiency that the author or the screenwriters wanted to confer to universally reviled acts. And now that we are nearing the end of the show, we can see that all the characters who resorted to unlegitimate violence are now dead, or likely soon to be, if the leaks are to be believed. So I think that it is actually a plot point. The sacrifice of Shireen was ineffective because it was not voluntary, and Shireen and her mother begged for the princess' life. There is a scene of sacrifice in the books, not of Shireen, of another person, and no one opposes it in the books. So I thought it was a very significant change that people opposed it in the series, in the TV show, and I think it may have meaning. This idea that there will be a limit, that may be a limit to what the efficiency of cruel acts in the world of Game of Thrones is very closely related to the idea, ancient idea, that magic could be the perverted ritual of a perverted religion. This is an idea that you find mainly, well, most famously exposed by Cicero, when regarding Vatinius, which was accused of witchcraft, and he said, "You, Vatinius, who are accustomed to call yourself a Pythagorean," which is a follower of Pythagoras, which has a religious dimension in antiquity, and to conceal behind the name of the most learned man of your behind the name of a most learned man your monstrous and barbarian custom. You have undertaken unheard of criminal acts. You are accustomed to make sacrifice to the ghost of the dead with the entrails of boy. So there is the idea that magic is actually violence in the guise of religion, but not true religion. So a faith is not considered false because it is not ineffective. Mainly everything is effective in Game of Thrones. A lot of people can actually perform magic. But their faith is false because they are deemed morally wrong. Melisandre, Thoros, and Beric have actual power, but their power is dismissed as magic by other characters who are not of the same faith. And even when the other character benefit from it, usually of the ritual that does not involve violence, they do not consider it a true religion. And I think this is exemplified in season 6 when Davos asks Melisandre to try to resurrect Jon. Davos is very skeptical about the faith of Melisandre, but he still asks her, and when asking her, he disconnects her own power from the power of her god. Melisandre said, "Everything I believed, the Greek victory I saw in the flames, everything was a lie. You were right all along. The Lord never spoke to me." And I will not read it because it's not polite, but Davos said, whatever, "I am not asking the Lord of Light for help. I am asking the woman who showed me that miracle exists." So, explicitly, Davos does not ask Melisandre to ask her God for power. He asks for her power, which is the same thing as saying that her power is not religious because it does not derive from a god. And you will remember that the ritual which resurrected Jon, which the actors called the sponge bath, because it may seem a little bit ridiculous, does not involve any violence, which is rare for Melisandre. It does not involve anything, really. She just cleans him up, say a spell, say a prayer, and burn up some of his hairs and his hairs. That's it. So there is the idea that magicians are dangerous and false priests, which was an idea already found in Christian sources of the 4th century in Jérôme of Stridon, that you may refer to as Saint Jérôme. Jérôme did not deny that there were magicians and that they had power. He told a very famous story about a man who wanted to marry a girl. The girl was not in love with him, so he went to Egypt to learn magic. In antiquity, you go to Egypt to learn magic. And he performed the spell, and it worked. The Virgin went insane, etc. It worked. So Jérôme, who is church father, never believed that there were magicians and that they could do magic that was not a trick, that was an actual paranormal phenomenon. But it was a false face because it worked on coercion. It was forcing people to do things they didn't want to do. And this is the same way that, in the same way that Westerosi people that do not adhere to the Lord of Light face see this face. This is explicitly said in the book, where Tauros is called the false priest of a false face. Sorry. To finish up, this is not the only assessment of magic regarding religion that we have in the TV show, in the series, and in the books. There is an opposite one, because what I just said was pertaining to the magic of Halor and his priests and priestesses. There is not at all the same assessment regarding the magic that comes from the children of the forest, which, according to the law, were the autochthonous inhabitants of Westeros before the arrival of men. Several types of magic come from them: green sight and skin changing, and warging. And they are presented in a very different way than the magic of Halor. This is one of the children of the forest, which appears in the TV show, Leaf, in season 4 and season 6, mostly. And it is striking that the people who practice this type of magic, the humans, are all Starks or their allies. Judge and Reed, the Wildlings, the Three-Eyed Raven, And their power comes from the Weirwood and the art tree of Weirwood. And I think there is also behind this world building, moral assessment, which is partially based on academic discourse. Because in late 19th century and early 20th century, ethnology of religion, which was heavily influenced by Romanticism, there was a postulate that mankind did not originally petition supernatural beings to grant them wishes, but they thought they could fulfill the wishes by ritual by themselves. And according to this conception, what we call magic today are the remnants of those rituals which originally were not addressed to gods, but were self-serving, if you want. And this trend in history and anthropology of religion actually ended up drawing up a hierarchy of religions, which was based on a moral judgment. The idea was that the more ancient the faith and the rituals, the purest the religion. And this idea in ancient history gave way to the view that archaic Roman religion was corrupted by the Greek. This paradigm is not very often used anymore. It is not considered very effective. However, it has massive influence in fantasy, as far as I can tell. When there are fictitious religion in fantasy, in many works, you have the idea that the older the faith, the older the ritual, the purest and the more authentic it is, and the more pure it is. So, in conclusion, I think that everything that is supernatural in Game of Thrones and in A Song of Ice and Fire can be defined as Roman superstitio. There are various cults, and their theology is partially drawn on ancient representations, notions, and practices. There is no clear distinction between religion and magic, as is the current trend in academia. In current ethnology, history, and anthropology of religion, there is no real difference between magic and religion, because magic is a loaded word with a moral aspect. And it does not really work to distinguish them on scientific basis or on theological basis. In Game of Thrones, there is no coherent theological system that can guide the reader or viewer as to the potential efficiency of a ritual. All the supernatural elements at work resort to the Roman category of superstition, which, depending on the context, the author, and the period, can mean anything related to the supernatural. It can mean, in Latin, superstitio can mean official conventional Roman religion. It can mean any religion, the Jewish religion, for example. It can mean overzealous practice of religion. It can mean religion without understanding, the religion of the stupid, if you want. It can mean foreign, non-Italic religion that can potentially threaten the Roman state. It can mean strange, ridiculous, barbaric religion. It can mean religion used for arming, and it can mean magic. It can mean anything. So I think this is pretty similar to whatever religion and magic are in Game of Thrones. And I do think that it does foreshadow the ending. In the books, we will probably never know, but in the show, we will know in a few days. While they can all be effective, there is a moral hierarchy of religions at work in Game of Thrones. The characters that adhere to the autochthonous faiths and rituals of Westeros, which do not, in the current timeline, because it's not so clear in the past, in the lore, resort to coercion and violence, unless it's voluntary, are likely to seize and keep the political power, thus adopting the views of a rather dated academic discourse on religion. The Eastern and violent religion of Halor, while it is useful because its priests largely contributed to the defeat of the White Walker and prevented the death of mankind, which is something, they will not likely prevail, politically speaking, in Westeros, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Maureen Attali. I think we are pretty well with time. We have still plenty of time, so I would ask anybody who has questions to Dr. Attali. Yes?
I think that one interesting mission is if you look at ancient religious superstition, those curses.
Yes. The fictionness, yes.
Yes, and we see nothing really of that.
No.
Effective curses, I find that a very interesting mission given all the parallels that you find.
Yes, I also wondered about that because the most common, the most known thing about Roman religion are the de fictiones. They are lead tablets in which you inscribe what you want. Please make my lover come back. And you invoke a god, and you put up usually in a well or in a cemetery, and it's supposed to work. There is none of that. And I think, I don't know why, but the material aspect of magic is not that much emphasized in Game of Thrones. Material is blood and fire, mostly. There are not so many potions. They are in the books, but not so much in the TV show. It's the idea, I think, my viewpoint, is that the goal is to blur, they do not exist, but is to blur the distinction between religion and magic.
What is your point? Do you think that every prophecy is fulfilled, maybe not just this way, or some prophecies will never be true even?
The thing is, it's a very heated debate right now, and also, I don't know, it's rather complicated. There is a prophecy in the book, which is the bone of contention, which is Cersei is going to die strangled by her younger brother. She has 2 younger brothers, so for 15 years, everyone has wondered if it was going to be Jaime or Tyrion, and I have been wondering for 15 years. But this part of the prophecy was never mentioned in the show, but the scene was the other part of the prophecy. So everyone wondered, why is that? And I think it was a plot point, because apparently the show writers, for reasons that I do not know, because I do not know anything about show writing, decided that they will not use that because, as we know, the show writers rely on the power of, how do we call that, subverting your expectations? If you say that, then we know the ending, because let's face it, everyone cares about Jaime and no one else. But in the books, it could not happen, but the thing is, it has relevance, because Cersei believes that it will happen. So, and she believes that Tyrion will kill her, not Jaime. So for 15 years, everyone thought that Cersei will try to kill Tyrion because she thinks he will kill her, and Jaime will end up killing her, which he did not do. But this is where it becomes shaky, George R.R. Martin, from what I've read in interview, he intended the prophecies to have a place in the plot. He said so, but it was not clear which place. But it is rather certain that they are not just words. They will have, in the books, a part to play in the show. They had also in the books. They had in the show Quace's prophecy. She told Daenerys, "You have to go to this city before you go to Westeros." Daenerys followed it, and it was the right thing to do. So some have already had an influence on the plot, but from what we can tell, it may be different in the book. Yes.
Yes.
Do you think we could include your guidance, necromancy, as a source of magic?
I was afraid of this question. I have a very big problem with necromancy. No, it's not a problem, but when I was putting this up, I tried to include necromancy, but I didn't really manage, because there is nothing that I can say for the necromancy of the White Walkers, because there is nothing like this in ancient sources. There is, in the book, another type of necromancy, which is talking to dead people in dreams. I'm not sure it happened in the TV show, but it does happen a lot in the books. The prophetic dreams of many characters are them speaking to dead people. Jaime is speaking to his mother, which he does not recognize because he does not remember her. And the dream is prophetic. So this does exist in ancient sources, the idea that you can communicate with dead people within dreams. In Jewish Greek sources, especially if you know such books as Two Maccabees, it does happen. But I could not draw a very clear parallel. And the main necromancy, there is also another type of necromancy. Well, it's not really necromancy, but it cannot be exploited. It is the case of Gregor Clegane. But we do not know what it is, what he is. Is his body a vessel? Does he remember what he was before? Was he raised by science or magic? We do not know. So I did not know what to do with it. But I agree that it would be very interesting to actually focus on necromancy.
Let's see if it works.
I wanted to ask you about, you've seen that Fate of the Seven has not worked as old gods has or roller. What do you think about it's the only religion, main religion we have seen that doesn't work anyway? Because
that's a very good question. The first presentation. The first time I worked on religion in Westeros, it was nearly 10 years ago, and I was putting up a presentation of different faces and cults, so I did work on the face of the seven, but prior to putting together this presentation, I had never realized that in the show, it is the only one that does not do anything. And this is where it became a little bit complicated, because the faithful of the face of the seven would think that whatever we saw happen because of Melisandre or Beric or whatever, maybe actually their own gods. You can attribute the same phenomenon to different gods regarding the face you adhere to. This is also the case very famously in Roman sources. The mythological conditions which were altered by under Marcus Aurelius in antiquity, everyone saw that he was their god. The Greek said that it was Hermes intervening because of the wind. The Jews said it was their god, and the Christians said it was their god. So you can interpret it however you want. But in Game of Thrones it's different, because we do see the rituals that make something happen. So as it is shown, it seems like the face of the seven is the only one that cannot do anything. And I don't know what we can take for that. We could say that it's ineffective, but we could also say that it's absolutely non-threatening, which is something to be said for religion. You do not risk anything if you are a follower of the seven, up until mysticism happened. Which is, how they are called, the sparrows in the TV show, which was the plot point of season 5. Is that it? With the trial of Cersei and Marjorie. And when you see mystics, which are from the face of the seven, which decide that they will regulate the conduct of other people, and they do resort to violence, not to magic. We do not see them make supernatural elements happen, but they do resort to violence. And mysticism is shown as a violent, something that can be violent. In terms of performativeness, I can only see that the seven gods apparently cannot do anything. But, well, it is debatable. The Battle of the Blackwater, you remember? In the books, it is very clear. The people of King's Landing who were saved at the Battle of the Blackwater, they think that their gods gave them the victory. But we did not see it happen, and we cannot say as a viewer for certain that their gods gave them the victory, the same way that we can say that R'hllor helped Melisandre light up the wood and win the Battle of Winterfell. So there is something very different here. You could consider that it's a true religion because it's non-threatening, or you could, and not magic, or you could consider that it's useless. It's your call.
Any more questions or reflections? Yeah.
Yeah. In like relation with the last question, that like inactivity of the seven gods may be caused by the thing that it's like the newest religion, in the sense of like the old gods, it's all this nature thing, but we don't have a figure for the gods. We have the trees, but that's not quite like, they're not the gods. And with the light with the light lord, it's like this fire and light figure, but it's not the warrior, that it's a warrior. It's not the mother. So maybe it's because the seven gods is like a religion of men created by men, and it doesn't have like this primary nature thing in some kind of way.
It may be so, but it's from a viewer's viewpoint, it's rather sad for them. Because we can ask ourselves the question, if we had to choose, to which religion would we adhere? It's actually a very good question, because we maybe think we would be safe if we were to adhere to the seven gods, but they cannot do anything. So this is actually, there is explanation, as you said, as to why it is shown in a certain way, but their place in the plot is very different in consequence.
Yep. Any more questions? Okay, so if everybody agrees, we want to thank you again.
Thank you very much,
Maureen, for your really, really inspiring talk. I think we all learned a lot, and we could reflect on the parallels between the construction of magic and religion in antiquity and in Game of Thrones. And not only the construction of magic, but also of strategies when dealing with magic and all that. So everyone here who is interested in religion, as me, for instance, are really, really happy with your talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.